Great to have with us. He is from District 18. He chairs the Florida House Budget Committee. He is Representative Travis Cummings. Travis, how are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Preston. How are you?
Good. If you were to grade out the session so far, what kind of grade would you give it?
You know, I'd have to. Of course, it's my last session, 8th year, so I'm going to be very optimistic and positive. But so far, I would say an A. We from a policy and perspective as well as from a budget perspective, very collegial process. Obviously, there's some difficult issues we discuss and deal with, but I think it's been a very successful session at this point. But we do have a little ways to go. Yeah,
the allocations have not come out in a time frame that leads anyone to think that we're going to get it done in time. So we're looking at maybe a little extra time.
I think that's very well a possibility. I mean, some would really have to shake loose today. I will tell you that, there has been a little movement, in the last, 24 hours or so. And, these are all things that just happen. And, but yeah, I think that you just roll the clock back in terms of us having to have the budget on the desk, so to speak, 72 hours before sine die, which is, Friday, March 13th, then yes, I think it's getting into critical time points. Now, hey, look, if we have some certainty there and we go a couple days in terms of, where we can't back up the clock and get on time, but we know, hey, we're going to go 1 day extra, 2 day, 3 day, I think the members and all the other interest groups will understand that and it'll be successful. But for right now, we still got to get through a little bit of a log jam and then hopefully get to budget conference in the near future.
Representative Travis Cummings, he chairs the Florida House Budget Committee. Representative Cummings, without putting yourself in a position where you're talking about things that might impact conference meetings, what are you most anticipating from a budgetary standpoint to get across the finish line?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's there's a lot of similarities between the House and Senate budget. We are quite a bit apart in from a dollar standpoint, but they're in some key areas or some select areas. Let's say, Preston, in terms of Florida Forever, the Senate's at 125 million. We're at 20 million. Governor was at 100 million on his budget. You've got affordable housing that. We've got a pretty significant sweep. The Senate does not have a sweep. You've got Visit Florida, which we did not fund at $50 million. The Senate did. You got higher education that we were all but flat, maybe a few cuts here and there. The Senate was obviously, quite a bit more than that. And so you look at those key areas, and that's where the differences are. And so do I think we'll compromise and work well with our Senate partners? We are right now in our discussions to overcome, those differences. I think we will.
We got another segment to go with Florida Representative Travis Cummings. He represents District 18. That's Clay County area, right?
You're exactly right. Absolutely.
How much time do you spend, if at all, during session with people back in the district to kind of get more direct feedback?
Well, you don't. It's hard. I mean, you're home on weekends. You try to be selfish with your time. And I say you're home on weekends this time of year, especially in my budgetary role. I'm up here, but you try to, have that time with the family. But no, people email you, they call you, they come up here. So we try not to get too far away from, obviously, our constituents in terms of how they feel.
More on the legislative session, which is drawing to a close, ? We'll talk a little bit more with Florida Representative Travis Cummings. He chairs the House Budget Committee. In 70 seconds of weather and traffic, back with more of The Morning Show with Preston Scott.
Someone has to say it. The Morning Show with Preston Scott on News Radio 100.7 WFLA.
Might there be overtime for the Florida legislature this legislative session? Certainly a lot to get done in a few days that are left before you do head to overtime. And joining us is the chair of the House Budget Committee, Florida Representative Travis Cummings. Representative Cummings, a lot was discussed before session started. Governor DeSantis fired off kind of a pretty strong proposal for teacher pay. When it's all said and done, what do you think is going to end up happening?
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because I failed to mention that on our first segment as we negotiate with the Senate. And one reason I didn't is just because while we're a little bit higher than the Senate from a teacher raise standpoint, Preston, I felt like there's going to be a positive outcome. We've got to work out, that difference or differences, but I think more so than just the dollars, where they go. Obviously a lot of attention's been on starting teacher pay, which needs to have much of the focus, but, we've got a lot of tenured teachers, so to speak, that have been teaching, 10, 15, 20, 30 years that, in our opinion, and I think the governor feels this way too, need to be recognized properly. And we're going to work hard on that. And I do think, to answer your question, that that both existing teachers as well as starting teacher pay will be addressed this session.
That was the elephant in the room to me, is as I read the proposal, because I've been a long advocate. I was involved in private education for many years. And I knew that eventually it would have to come around to the existing teachers and how to reward them while you're bringing the other ones along, because I'm in favor of both. But tell me this. I know it's an unpopular subject, because every time I ask a lawmaker about this, Travis, they kind of roll their eyes and accept it as, well, there's nothing we can do about it. But I keep going back and circling back to the class size amendment and the billions of dollars that have been flushed down the drain for something that has, at this point, we can now establish, has not changed outcomes. Is there any possibility of visiting funding sources like that to help secure some money for teachers?
Well, I think that's a great question. I have not heard anything in that regard on class size amendment discussions, at least this session, but I think anything's open, and not to, be, giving constructive feedback on the history of that and how it occurred and why it occurred. But it's a different day now. I mean, we've got, golly, our lab, this budget cycle here, we had, how was it, 50,000 new students coming in the state. We weren't inspected, that we didn't project, and we always project increases in a very populous state that people still want to come here. And so those are millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's really a mandate that we clearly provide for those students and educate them. And so, to your point, I think for us to continue, this is, in the governor, we have to give him credit. I mean, I think that was very bold. He focused on starting teacher pay to try to attract professionals to public education. But I think that we're going to have to keep it going. And to your point, you're going to have laws in the economy, right, wrong, or indifferent. We've been on a tremendous run here. We're a tourism state. Sales tax is a huge deal. No income tax, but I think some dedicated revenue sources. Obviously, the lottery has been helpful, although we can be critical of how helpful. But we've really got to, prepare for the future in terms of not only making sure that those educational professionals are properly recognized, but also that we just deal with the tremendous growth we've had and, lead to great outcomes per what you mentioned.
It has been a collegial session. We got about 30 seconds left, Representative Cummings. Is there one area that, just as a personal legislator, you're disappointed didn't get handled?
No, I think everything's in play. We've got a lot to do in the obviously the Agency of Persons with Disabilities and some of our direct care workers that deal with some of our most vulnerable citizens. That's still hanging out there. That's a passion of mine and from back home, and I hope we can do that. But we're in a good position, definitely to negotiate that with the Senate, and they've done their part in the Senate as well. So hopefully we'll have a good outcome there.
Come back. I'd love to have you back on the show sometime.
Hey, great job, Preston. Enjoy listening to you, and call on me anytime.
Thank you, sir. Florida Representative Travis Cummings. He chairs the House Budget Committee. You heard, final year.